Hello grade 3, this is Mr. Yahya, and today we will take our reading lesson 18. Our text that we're going to discuss or read today is called A Tree is Growing, and it is written by the author called Arthur Dorris. So let's take a look at our story and see what we're going to learn today. So, first let's start with the genre of the text. What is the genre of the text? What kind of text is this? So, this text is an informational text. It gives us information about a topic, right? So we're going to say that this is an informational text. It gives us information and facts about a topic, just like we said. So, let's start with our story. It is called A Tree is Growing by Arthur Dorris, and it is illustrated by S.D. Schindler. What does it mean, illustrated by? It means the drawings were made by S.D. Schindler. Okay. A giant tree may look as if it has always been big, but even the biggest tree keeps growing and changing. In the spring, you can see that a tree is growing as you watch buds on the branches unfold into leaves. Bristlecone pines are the oldest known living trees on Earth. Some have been growing for 5,000 years, since before the pyramids in Egypt were built. Leaves can be skinny needles or big heart shapes. Whatever shape or size a leaf is, it makes food for the tree. A kind of sugar is made in the leaves. Trees use the sugar as food. And here we have different kinds of leaves. We have white oak leaves, ginkgo leaves, palm leaves, leaves from a breadfruit, from a white pine, from a red maple, from an empress tree. So different kinds of leaves come in different shapes, right? In different sizes. And we know that right now that the importance of leaves is what? To make the sugar or the food for a tree. Okay. The sugary water made in the leaves is mixed with other tree juices called sap. The food in the sap is carried throughout the tree, where a branch breaks or where bark is cut. Sap oozes out of a tree. Then strong smells of some saps can keep insects from eating the trees they live on. So, trees make a juicy liquid which is called sap. And we know right now that sap oozes out of a tree and it has strong smells that keep what? That keep insects from eating the tree. Okay? And it gives you an example. If you rub a sassafras leaf, the sap smells spicy. Maple syrup is the boiled sap of sugar maple trees. If you've ever had pancakes with maple syrup, well, maple syrup comes from trees. It's the sap of these trees, and then we boil it to make the syrup. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about baobab trees. So, baobab trees store water in the trunks. When a baobab tree trunk is swollen with water, it is round and fat. In dry weather, the tree gets water from the trunk. Then the trunk gets thinner. And we said over here that we have the word store, right? We said yesterday in our vocabulary lesson that it does not mean a store that we go to buy things from, but to store something as a verb, to keep it inside or to keep it for later use. So baobab trees store water in their trunks. Okay? And here we have a little moth caterpillar on the tree. So, a tree needs sunlight, air, soil, and water to grow. Water travels through passages in the trunk and branches up to the leaves. The water moves up the trunk as if it is being sucked through a straw. Sugary sap made in the leaves travels down other passages in the trunk, taking food to different parts of the tree. And yesterday in our vocabulary lesson we said that the meaning of a passage is what? It's a pathway, a narrow pathway. So you can see in the picture over here that water moves in narrow pathways or passages throughout the tree. So, a few kinds of trees drop roots from branches into the soil to gather water. Banyan tree roots grow into columns all around the tree. Growing roots are strong. A root can lift a sidewalk or split a rock as it grows. By splitting the rock, it helps make soil. And here is a white oak, very large tree with really hard wood. You have some earthworms, a beetle grub. So, bark is the skin of a tree. The outer layer of bark protects the tree. When an oak tree is young, the bark is as smooth as a baby's skin. As the tree grows older, the bark becomes rough and cracked. And here we have a flicker bird living by these trees. So, looking at the bark of a tree can help you know what kind of tree it is. The cork used for bulletin boards is the peeled off outer bark of a cork oak tree. Honey locust bark has spines to help protect the tree. It means that it has what? Spikes coming out of it to help protect the tree. And we have over here on the tree a polyphemus moth, a kind of moth. Similar to a butterfly, but not exactly a butterfly. In cool climates, cambium only grows in spring and summer. Count growth rings to see how old a tree was when it died. An old fir tree can have over 1,000 rings, one for each year it lived. In tropical rainforest trees, the cambium grows all year, and there are no rings. It is hard to tell the ages of those trees. So let's find out what is cambium. So let's look over here at a tree. So we have different layers. Okay, we have the phloem, the cambium right over here, and the xylem right over here. So this cambium, it forms the growth rings here. Okay, you have a little snail on the tree over here. So all these growth rings that you see on the tree, they tell us how old it is. The bark you can touch and see is not growing anymore. Underneath it is a layer of growing bark called cambium. Each year, cambium growth is a ring. So each year's cambium growth is a ring in the wood of a tree. It means that each year it grows some more cambium, which makes a new ring. As trees add new cambium, the trees become bigger around. Next to the cambium are two layers called xylem and phloem. Water from the roots moves through the xylem, and sap from the leaves moves through the phloem. We have a little underwood moth, another kind of moth over here, a little smaller than the first one. So trees grow bigger around and they grow taller. As a tree grows, lower branches may fall off, making the trunk look longer. But the branches do not move upward on the trunk. A tree grows taller only at the top as the tips of the top branches grow upward. If you find a mark on a tree trunk today, that mark would stay at the same height for as long as the tree lives. Okay? And here is a tree, At 10 years old, here is this mark that they put. Okay? When it became 20 years old, the mark is still in the same place, just the tree grew thicker and longer. Same thing, even after 30 years, got even thicker and way longer, but the mark is still at the same spot. Okay, a little wild turkey. Anyways, so at 50 years, the same thing. It will be right over here, and the mark will be at the same spot. At 200 years, same thing. That mark is still there. Okay, it only grew thicker and taller. Here it says, sequoias are some of the tallest trees in the world, over 300 feet tall. Wow. Okay. So birds, insects, and even bats are attracted to flowers to drink their sweet juices. When they brush the flowers, the animals get a powder called pollen on them. The animals carry the pollen to other flowers. When the pollen mixes with certain parts of the flowers, seeds grow. Wind also helps pollinate flowers. Okay. Here we have nectar-eating bat, purple finch male, some catkins dangling down from the tree, and a saucer magnolia flower over here. But anyways, here we said that animals get a powder called pollen on them, and they can move this powder or pollen from one flower to another. Okay, and we know that pollen grows on male flowers or male plants. When we move it to a female flower or female plant, it will produce a seed once it mixes with certain parts of the flower. Alrighty, let's keep on going. So, in the spring, you can smell tree flowers. Tree flowers are found in many shapes and colors and have many different smells. Parts of the flowers grow to become seeds. Oak trees have dangling clumps of flowers called catkins that help make acorns, the seeds of an oak tree. And remember, we took in our spelling lesson 14 the word acorn. Well, acorn is a kind of nut, and it grows on oak trees. Okay, so here we have wild cherry, a little honeybee right over here, probably going to help in moving pollen from these flowers to another flower. And here we have the purple finch. Okay, and this is the female one. We saw in the previous picture the male flower. Okay, so an oak tree can drop more than 50,000 acorns in 1 year. Only a few of them grow into oak trees. Most are eaten, are crushed, rot, or land in a place where they cannot take root. Acorns can be carried away and dropped or buried by animals to grow in new places. Other kinds of seeds blow in the wind or float on water. Here we have a sugar maple leaf, and this is a sugar maple seed flying with the wind. Okay, maybe some will fall in the water over here and float to another area, and eventually you'll have another maple tree growing there. Okay, we have some acorns over here. Okay. So, different kinds of trees make seeds with different coverings. Nuts, cones, and fruits all have seeds inside. So here we have a Brazilian nut, a mountain pine cone, some cherries. Here's a little gray squirrel, probably carrying an acorn or some kind of nut. Coconuts are seeds of a palm tree. A coconut can float across the ocean and sprout on a sandy beach. In cool climates, trees stop growing in autumn. The leaves of many trees stop making sugary food for the tree, and they lose their green color. Then you can see the red, brown, yellow, and orange colors that are also in the leaves, like you can see over here, right? Pine trees and some other trees have needles or leaves that do not change color in autumn. And we call these kinds of trees evergreens because they stay green all year long, forever pretty much. So autumn is a great time to collect leaves. Each tree has its own special color. Here's a tulip poplar, a ginkgo, a big tooth aspen, some sweet gum, and a pin oak. Some animals over here. Got a millipede, earthworms, spider, and a beetle. So different creatures live around trees and in the forest, right? When leaves fall to the ground, insects and worms eat them. The chewed and eaten bits of leaves make the soil better for growing trees and other plants. And here we have a little mole. He's eating, I guess, a worm or a leaf. I don't think it's a leaf. Maybe the worm is eating the leaf and now the mole is eating the worm, I guess. Okay, and here we have a white oak tree and a horse chestnut. So, trees rest in the cold of winter, and their branches are bare. They may look as if they are dead, but look closely and you can see small buds that will become leaves and flowers in the spring. In the spring, listen to the wind rustling the leaves. The trees are growing again. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you understood this lesson and were able to collect a lot of facts and information from this text. What you can do now is you can turn off the volume for the video and let it play again while reading with your eyes the story this time. Okay? And hopefully when we're back to school, we'll get to discuss this story or reading text together. Thank you so much, and please have a good day.